Hey guys, back out in the woods today, and I wanted to do a video today to show you guys how I set up my backpacks for wilderness survival, bushcraft, camping, bug out, whatever you want to call it, or however you want to use it. This is how I set up my bags, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts that I want to go over, so stick around, it's going to be a cool video. First thing that you always want to have, or I always want to have in my backpack when I go out in the woods, is I want a way of hanging my backpack and getting it off the ground. Because right now I've got it sitting on the ground, and if the ground is damp like it is right now, that's going to be a problem. It's going to get my pack dirty. It could get the contents wet. But what I like to do is I like to carry these in all my bags, and this little toggle rope that I put together basically is about a 3-foot long cord. It's got knots every 5 to 6 inches, and on the end I've got a heavy-duty carabiner that's at least rated to 100 pounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this around the tree. This is going to come back, and it's going to create a place to hang my pack. Let me show you. So obviously this is a thinner tree, so it's not too big of a deal. I don't have to use the whole thing, but that's why you have it 3 feet in case you get into bigger trees. You can wrap around those. But you put the carabiner on the closest knot that you can get to the tree, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to take my pack, lift it, I'm going to hang it from the carabiner. Now I've got a way of keeping my pack off the ground, but I can also get into it a lot easier. I don't have to bend over. I can have it at a height that I can work comfortably with, and I can see where everything's at. So what I want to do is I'm going to get this thing unloaded, and I'm going to show you how I load a backpack of this size. Alright, so I've got all the gear laid out. This is typically what I bring on a trip with this kind of weather. So we're in January. It's like 35, 36 degrees today. So I've got my cold weather sleeping gear, and I've got typically what I would pack in my backpack of this size for a 2 to 3 day trip. And what I want to do is I want to show you not specifically what I carry. I'm not going to be talking about the gear in depth. I want to show you how I pack things in specific bags and how I load them into the pack, because that's really important when you're setting up a new bag, right? You've just bought this new backpack, you get it home, you got all this cool gear that you've been buying, and now you're trying to figure out what the heck do I do with it. You obviously just don't dump it in your backpack and head out in the woods. There is a better method for going through this stuff and keeping it organized and having it packed correctly so it's easy to find and it's comfortable while you're wearing the bag. So what I like to do is I like to pack my gear into subloads, and what I mean by that is I'm packing gear like gear that is similar into packages that I can easily get to in my backpack. If you take all this stuff and just dump it in, it's going to be a mess and it's going to be hard to find. So by packing it into individual bags that I can easily identify with similar like items in that bag, it's much easier for me when I get to camp and I'm setting up. And it also makes it easier if I'm setting up in the dark, if it's raining, if I'm cold, if I'm tired. This all helps in setting up camp quickly and easily. So what I like to do is have everything organized in these different bags, and then I pack them in a certain order into my backpack so that when I get to camp, I know exactly where everything is at, and they come out in a logical order of how I set things up. And the way I set things up is my shelter is typically the first thing that I want to set up when I get to camp. Just going through this stuff briefly, one thing I like to do is I like to have my bivy bag and my sleeping pad together. So the sleeping pad is actually inserted into the bivy bag, and then I roll those two together. That way the bivy bag protects my sleeping pad from puncture. It's all together already. The only thing I have to do is unzip that bivy bag, throw my sleeping bag into it, and I'm ready to go. And what I've done is, with this one, I'm actually using these new straps from Modl. These are their infinity gear straps. These things are awesome. It's a rubber gear strap that stretches, and then you just run it through the metal loop and then hook it, and then it stays and it grips. And it is so easy to set these things up. If you guys have any experience with traditional nylon straps, they are a pain in the butt. Modl just came out with these. I love these things. Just a really great way of keeping rolled up gear organized. So this goes on the outside of my bag just because it fits perfectly there, and I'll show you that as I'm loading. I like to keep my tarp in a bag that I can get to, and then inside this bag is my tent stakes, my guy lines, and my ridge lines. So the entire shelter system is in one bag, easy to work with. This is I think it's a 9x9 tarp from Helican Tech in the woodland camo. So this is all together my shelter. Of course, my cook pot in a bag. But with cook pots, you always want to make sure you're utilizing that space that's inside the pot. And in here, I keep a little scrub pad and a washcloth that I can actually clean my pot with. I've got my stove, and then I've got my fuel. And this all nests inside the pot, so now there's no wasted space. So this container is my cook kit. Along with the cook kit, you're going to have some kitchen items that you need to have with you, and you're going to need food. I like to keep everything in a dry bag. That way, when I'm done cooking, at the end of the day, I can hang this from a tree if I'm in bear country, or if I have raccoons or something in the area. It's going to keep my food safe, and it's going to keep the odor down. So I keep my food items in this bag. And I've just got a sampling with a few things, so dehydrated meals. But I also keep all my kitchen stuff in one bag. I got my spork and my folding bowl. I've got my insulated mug. And then I've got some coffee and some different little condiments that I carry with me to spice up my food. And then I've even got a coffee filter and a drip filter to make whole coffee. So everything is in this bag together. And a lot of my stuff is camo. That's just because I prefer it that way. You could certainly color code your bags, so different colors for different items. So this is my kitchen bag. This is a smaller dry bag. This actually has a t-shirt and socks, so this is my change of clothes. One thing you really need to be aware of when you're packing for trips is don't bring too much clothes. You really don't need that much stuff. I mean, I know guys that bring like a change of underwear for every day, and you need a couple pairs of socks, so you have dry socks the next day, a couple t-shirts, and then maybe a warm layer, and that's all you're going to need. Another organization item that I like to have is what I call my possibles pouch, or my survival pouch. This has all of the small little items that I would carry to start fire. There's a way of sharpening my knife. So there's also water purification tablets. So it's all those little tiny things that I don't want floating around my bag. I want them in an organized pouch, and I love these Maxpedition pouches because they have organizers that lays everything out so you can see it very easily. and it has a good grab handle on it. My headlamp, I always keep it in a small nylon pouch. This is like a sil nylon. That way it just keeps it protected and keeps the strap from getting tangled on stuff. And then I always know that by this size pouch, this is my headlamp. Toiletry items, I like to keep them in a simple, clear bag that I can see into. That way I can see the contents, and I know if I need to refill stuff. I don't bring a lot of toiletries with me. Toothpaste, toothbrush, contacts, some various medications, and some solution for my eyes, and that's about it. You don't need a lot of stuff for a 2 or 3 day trip. First aid kit in a nice, brightly colored, identifiable pouch. Really important. Toilet paper. Always keep it in a plastic bag that I can see into. That way I can see how much I have left, and it keeps it dry, and it's a big bag, so it's easily accessible. So when I'm doing my business, I can reach in there, grab what I need to, and put it away. And I keep that with a plastic trowel so I can dig a cat hole. Another thing I like to bring in my backcountry bag is a small grill. I do a lot of cooking over a campfire, and having a grill really makes camping a little bit more enjoyable. So I have my folding grill, and it gets pretty grungy when you're cooking meat and stuff on it. So what I've done is I always keep mine in this Tyvek bag. I've got this at the post office. These things are great. They don't tear, they don't rip. They keep the contents of the grill inside the bag, and so my backpack does not get dirty or filthy with all the gunk on there. And of course the last thing that I carry is my sleeping bag. This is the cold weather bag from the military, the Army sleep system. And what I do is I always get a nice compression sack for my sleeping bags. If you don't have one, I highly suggest you do that, because sleeping bags, especially winter sleeping bags, are going to take up so much room in your backpack that a good compression sack is going to manage that size by compressing the contents into a smaller size. So now, now what I want to do is I want to show you how I load all this stuff into this backpack, because this is, you know, a very typical bucket style backpack where everything is going to be sitting on top of each other. And you want to be thinking about how you're going to load this, where a lot of the bulkier, heavier items are at the bottom and the smaller, lighter things are towards the top. But also you want to be thinking about the order things go in, if you can organize that way. So obviously the first item that's going to go in here is the biggest, bulkiest thing that I have, and that's my sleeping system. So that goes in here, and then I shove it in and I turn it so it's laying down. So it's not sitting up, it's laying down, so it's covering the width of the pack. That way I have a nice stable base while I'm loading my backpack. Now, next thing I'm probably going to go for is my food bags. I'm not going to be accessing the kitchen food stuff right away, so those can go down on top of that. I squish them down. Before I get too carried away, I take my grill and I'm going to shove that towards the back, against the back of the backpack. Now this backpack has a rigid frame back, so I'm not going to feel the contents of the bag against my back, so that it's protected. So the grill goes down there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my cook kit, because that's not something that I need quick access to. Then I'm going to put my tarp towards the top, and then the very top of this I'm going to put my fleece shirt, because this is something I'm probably going to grab if I'm on the trail and I get cold and I want to add an extra layer. I can open up the bag, take this out, put it on. So I don't keep this in a bag, I keep this rolled up at the top, and that kind of keeps everything compressed. So you can see shirts on the top, tarp is the next layer. So when I get to camp, I open this up. I got my shirt. I pull my tarp out. Everything is in here. This is the first thing that I'm setting up in my camp. Once the tarp's done, I'm going to take this blue tarp that I have everything on. That's typically on the outside of my bag. That's going underneath my tarp so I can start putting gear down. That's when I take out my my bivy bag and my sleeping bag, and I start setting up my shelter area. So what we do is you want to make sure whatever backpack you use, you get everything nice and tightened down when you're loading. There's a reason they put all these straps and cords, because it helps manage the load. It keeps it from flopping around. So everything is tight in there. Now I've got all this little stuff. Where does that go? Well, most hiking backpacks of this size have a top pocket. And on my pack, I have all the little things that I need to get to when I get to camp in my top pocket. So I've got my possibles pouch, toilet paper, first aid kit, toiletries, then I've got my headlamp, I've got a small lantern that I carry, my trowel, now everything is in the top lid of this backpack. All that little stuff is not floating around in the main body of my backpack. Okay, now I've got a couple things left. Water bottles. I like backpacks that have water bottle pockets on the outside. I don't like my water bottles on the inside of my pack. I don't always use a hydration bladder. I've had issues with them, but if I have to carry a lot of extra water, I will take a bladder. But typically, I take bottles and then I treat the water before it goes in the bottle, either with tabs or a small filtration system like a Sawyer. So on this Marine Corps pack, it's got a nice deep water bottle pocket. And then what I like to do is, a little trick, is to run your compression strap through the handle of the water bottle. That way you do not lose it, because you think you've got stuff secured, but when you start walking and hiking, things will come loose and they can fall out. So on this side, I've got my water bottle. Flip the pack around. This pack is designed to carry long things. So I've got my silky saw. Goes down in this panel, and then I run it all the way down to the pocket below it. And then I put a string or a lanyard on the end of my saw. That way I can run it through another compression strap as a way of dummy cording it to the pack, so if it does come loose for whatever reason, I don't lose it while I'm on the trail. Now my knife, I would typically carry this on my belt, but maybe with this hip belt on this pack I may not be able to do that. So sometimes what I do is I will actually either put this inside the pack, or if I have a good clip system like on this knife, I can run that through a compression strap, lock that down, and that's going to be on the outside of the pack, easy for me to get to, but it's secure enough that I'm not going to lose it. And then the last thing I do is, here is my sleep pad in my bivy sack. That goes on the outside of the bag because it fits perfectly there. It helps put the weight towards the bottom of the pack. You noticed I don't put this underneath the lid at the top. I don't want the top of my pack overly heavy. I don't want it overly tall. That's a mistake I see a lot of people do, is they start loading stuff up on top of their packs. They strap things to the top of their packs, and now the pack is very tall and heavy at the top, and it makes it unwieldy. I like everything low center of gravity, so that's why I put my sleep system at the very bottom of my bag. Okay, one thing that I really want to stress when you're setting up a backpack, and I see this all the time and it just drives me crazy to no end, don't put so much stuff on the outside of your bag. If you have to hang things off of your bag, extra pouches and pockets, things dangling, one, it's noisy. Two, there's a good chance you're going to lose those things because they're going to get caught on branches and be pulled off of your pack, and it's just silly. So what you really need to do is you need to buy the bag that is going to fit the gear that you have. If you have to have all this stuff on the outside, your pack is too small. Don't try to squeeze by with a small day pack and go on a 3-day winter trip. You need a bigger bag. You want to be able to be comfortable, you want to be able to be warm, and you want to be safe. So having a good sized backpack, even like this ILBE, it contains everything I need. I don't have to worry about leaving something at home and then being cold or hungry. I've got all the gear I need. So always buy a bag that is right sized for your trip. Okay, got the pack loaded now. This thing weighs in at about 27 pounds dry weight, no water. How are you going to get that pack on you easily? There's a lot of different tricks and tips on how people do it. I kind of manhandle it, but what I like to do is I bring it to my side, I bend my knees, and I pick up the pack by the straps, and I kind of put it on my knee right there, and then I put my hand through, I lean into it, I pull it around, I grab my waist strap, finding my strap, now I've got it on. Now I've seen people do like an upside down method where they pick up the pack and they flip it over. For some reason I don't like that. I can't get my head around that, flipping my bag over with my contents of everything kind of moving around. So this works for me. So now I've got the pack on. How do I fit it? How is this pack going to become more comfortable? Because right now, the way it is, it's not comfortable at all. There's a lot of adjustments on this thing. And the first thing I want to do is buckle my waist strap. It's loose. Grab the ends, and I'm going to cinch it in as tight as I possibly can. What's happening is I'm bringing the hip belt around. It's sitting kind of on top of my hip bone or my pelvis, and then what I'm looking for is this strap right here. So see that strap right there? This is going to pull the pack into the belt. That's important. I grab one, pull it tight. Go to the other side, same thing. You can do that at the same time. So now that is cinched towards the belt. And now the pack straps are loose. So what I'm going to do is take these straps and I'm going to pull them down. Okay. There we go. Pull that tight. Grab this one. You may have to lift up the buckle a little bit, but you want these tight because that's bringing the pack towards me. So now the pack is brought in and up. And then the very last thing that I do is the sternum strap. I've seen people talk about cutting off their sternum straps, not using them. There's a really good reason why sternum straps are on backpacks, especially of this size, is what they do is when you buckle them and you pull it tight, it pulls in the straps. So now the straps are in, they're up, and the weight of this pack is now more on my hips and not on my shoulders. That's where you get the fatigue, that's where you get the pain, is when the pack is not properly adjusted and pulled tight, you get that pain. So the hip belt, all that weight is going to my hip belt, it's transferring to my hips, and that's where I'm carrying my weight. And when I'm hiking and walking, I bend just a little bit at the waist so that weight is going down. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed the video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Also, check out the affiliate links down below. Amazon store has a lot of this gear that I showed in it. Also, check out the Facebook group. That is getting huge. Lots of great additional content on my Facebook page and my group, so please join that. And as always, thank you so much for watching The Prepared Wanderer. We'll see you next time.